Hi everyone, today we're going to be talking about sugar. And Hippocrates does say, let thy food be thy medicine and medicine be thy food. Yet sugar is not medicine, it's a toxin. And we are consuming high rates of sugar even if you're not intentionally trying to. If you eat a lot of highly refined and processed foods, fast foods, anything that's made with wrappers, packaging, you are consuming more sugar than you realize. It's added in everything. It's hidden with different names, but sugar is everywhere. And if you're not actively trying to avoid it, you are consuming it. So 93% of Americans are in poor metabolic health, meaning they have high blood pressure, high blood sugar, high cholesterol, have had a heart attack or a stroke, are currently overweight. And so if you fall into one of these categories, this information is for you. And if you don't, this information is still for you. Knowledge is power, so the more that you know, the better you can be. So sugar and obesity, this is what's currently wrong with our diet. Every country that has adopted our Western diet, so the standard American diet, which is SAD, sad. It's a very sad diet. They're now sick all over the world. And obesity is not the problem itself, but it is a marker of the problem. Keep in mind, there are plenty of thin people who are sick. The problem is they just have fat where they don't know it, and that's currently in the liver. So fatty liver is the problem. 45% of adults and 25% of children have fatty liver. This was only once found in alcoholics, and now children have this disease. Why do they have it? It's because of sugar, a high consumption of sugar. It's in everything, literally. So sugar and alcohol, after they are metabolized by your body, are identical as far as your liver is concerned. And there was a little story that I was listening to in one of the podcasts, and two 15-year-olds needed liver transplants because they consumed too much soda because of the sugar, and it caused cirrhosis of their liver. So if you're drinking a lot of soda, you really may want to stop. Just altogether stop purchasing it. It's really not good for you. And just switch to water. So it's the dietary sugar, the sweet stuff. It's sucrose, which is glucose and fructose. Glucose is used as energy, as we've learned in the previous video. It's very important, but your body will produce this. It's not important enough you don't have to consume a lot of it. It will stimulate your insulin release, which is not good, as it drives energy into the fat cells, increasing your body weight, and this is how you gain weight. So when you're constantly causing or stimulating your insulin release, this is how you gain weight, or this is why you're gaining weight. And fructose is not a dietary requirement. It's sweet, it tastes good, it's addictive, it's metabolized like fat, and it is, again, not necessary for survival. So when all these sugars get stuck in the liver, you get insulin resistance, which is bad. And this causes heart disease, diabetes, Alzheimer's, cancers, all chronic metabolic diseases in the United States. And the single biggest driver of all disease is insulin resistance. So how to know if you're insulin resistant? You should look at your waist. It's the visceral fat, which is around, it's the fatty adipose tissue, and it's what's in your liver. So if you have liver fat. So men, if your waist measure 40 inches or greater, you have visceral and liver fat that and this most likely means you have insulin resistance and mitochondrial dysfunctioning. And women, if your waist measure 35 inches or greater, you probably have visceral and liver fat, and that most likely means that you have insulin resistance and mitochondrial dysfunctioning. But keep in mind, if you're thin, you can still have this disease as well, especially if you're eating a lot of refined carbohydrates and a lot of sugar. So just beware. And mitochondrial dysfunction, there is no medicine to make your mitochondria work better. You have to clean up your diet. So it's functional medicine. You literally need to eat clean. And so insulin is the driver of all metabolic diseases in the United States and worldwide. And there are 8 processes that happen in the cell that you can slow down with proper nutrition. You can't stop this altogether. Some of it is just part of the aging process, but you can slow this down with proper nutrition. So if you clean up your diet, you can actually help slow the aging process. But if you're eating a lot of sugar and carbohydrates, you're going to accelerate this process. So glycation, I know I've spoke about this before, but it's glucose that binds to a protein, and it changes the function of the protein, causing cell death. So essentially, glycation is a process which is caused by the presence of excess glucose in skin fibers. This excess triggers an internal reaction in which the sugar molecules adhere to the collagen and elastin proteins, which normally help keep the skin firm and supple, and it makes your skin saggy. So if someone is, so it's a cause of wrinkles, saggy skin, and you don't need creams or injections or surgeries or anything like that. You just need to clean up your diet. So when you're eating sugar, eating carbohydrates, refined carbohydrates in excess, which is most people, if they don't realize what they're eating or if they're consuming a lot of processed foods, you are aging yourself. You're speeding up this process by constantly eating this. And you can slow the aging process, and you can actually reverse all of the wrinkles and saggy skin if you do clean up your diet. You can do it. It's possible. This is also the cause of cataracts, the cause of cardiovascular disease, also the cause of dementia. And you don't want to be glycated. You will because of the aging process. It's part of life, but you can slow this down. So to do that, which I just mentioned, you need to stop providing the sugar. You need to stop providing the glucose and the fructose. You need to read labels. Think of high fructose corn syrup. It's in everything. So if you read labels and try to buy items that either have no sugar or very low sugar added, I mean, I would opt for no sugar if you can find it. That's the best. This is why I make a lot of sauces, dressings, a lot of my own food, just because there's sugar in everything and it's terrible. Sugar is the bad guy, and you can control this if you choose to. So I've done it, and so this is some of the stuff that I use here, but it really does make a difference when you stop using it. Oxidative stress occurs every time glycation occurs, meaning every time you eat sugar, these processes are happening, and this is technically what causes the aging process. And if you stop consuming sugar, this will definitely slow down the aging process. Mitochondrial dysfunctioning, we did talk about this. Mitochondria are the powerhouses of the cells. They generate ATP, which is energy for your body, as they convert food to energy. And so when they dysfunction, you're not properly processing food, and you're not effectively metabolizing the food. So if you are, if your mitochondria are unable to completely burn the food and the oxygen to generate energy, which is essential for all of your cells in your body, you're going to have dysfunction. And fructose, sugar, inhibits 3 enzymes that mitochondria need to function optimally. So if you're constantly feeding your body sugar, your body is not going to run optimally. Like I said, mitochondria are the powerhouses of the cell. They turn everything you eat into energy, ATP technically, which is energy for your body. And when this process is inhibited by sugar, you have mitochondrial dysfunctioning. And if your mitochondria are dysfunctioning, you're going to be sick. And fructose is a 3-in-1 mitochondrial toxin, so you need to stop eating sugar. 4 is insulin resistance. The hormone insulin helps control the amount of sugar or glucose in your blood. And so when you eat starchy foods, refined carbohydrates, or actual sugar, your blood glucose is going to spike after you eat that, and your body releases insulin, which helps to lower the blood glucose in your bloodstream. And so what happens is the glucose then goes into fat cells, and your fat cells swell. And so you don't want this. You don't want this. And if you have insulin resistance, meaning your body does not react to the insulin as it's being produced to pull the glucose out, and so you have to keep producing more and producing more and producing more, and that leads to type 2 diabetes. So you don't want that. You definitely want to avoid consuming so much sugar as much as possible. And then 5 would be membrane instability. So all of your cells in your neurons have a membrane, and they need to be able to regenerate or turn over and make new cells to maintain the integrity. And they can't do that if there's a lot of sugar and insulin present in your bloodstream and in your body. And you can also fix this by adding or supplementing your diet with omega-3 fatty acids. This is one of the good oils. So if you need a refresher on bad and good oils, watch my videos again. But this improves the membrane integrity in your liver, in your arteries, and in your neurons. So where do you get omega-3s? They're not found in farmed fish, only found in wild caught fish. So when you're shopping for fish, look for wild caught as much as possible. You can also supplement with omega-3s. Just make sure it's a good brand that you're purchasing from. 6 is inflammation. So it's localized swelling in your knees and your elbows, hands, redness. They're often hot or painful, and it's a reaction to injury or infection. And where is the inflammation coming from? Typically it's coming from your gut and your microbiome, which is like basically your second brain. The intestine provides a barrier to keep the stuff, so when you digest and your food turns to shit, the intestines provides a barrier to keep that right there and not going into your bloodstream. But when you're eating highly processed foods and sugars, and you're not feeding your gut microbiome what it needs, your gut microbiome is then going to eat through the mucous membrane, and that's when you start to have essentially what is called leaky gut. And you have tight junctions in your intestines as well, and they become dysfunctional when you're eating too much sugar, which also is another part of the leaky gut. And this activates your immune system, which causes inflammation and swelling throughout the body. You can fix all of this by eating a high fiber diet and laying off the processed foods, as processed foods are essentially fiberless food. So this definitely requires a diet change if you really want to fix the problem. And it's really not that hard, I promise you. Like, you will live if you don't eat sugar or like refined carbohydrates. It can be done, I promise. And then 7th is methylation, a chemical reaction in the body in which a small molecule called a methyl group gets added to the DNA structure, proteins, and other molecules. This process, it's a process that normally goes on, but you don't want this to get out of hand. So you should increase your intake of B vitamins, B1, B2, B6, B12, and folate to keep this at bay. Processed food is not high in any of these vitamins, but grass-fed beef is. So if you can get yourself some grass-fed beef and some grass-fed dairy products, those are amazing. And then finally, 8, autophagy, which happens as your body basically regenerates itself when you are in a fasting state. I fast for at least 16 to 20 hours generally, and in that time, it's not, like, fasting is not just for fat loss or weight loss, it's for cell regeneration and my body to basically filter through all the bad cells that could possibly or potentially have become cancer, and they essentially like clean themselves out and restore themselves. So it's a self-digesting mechanism responsible for removal of damaged organelles, malformed proteins during biosynthesis, and non-functioning long-lived proteins by lysosomes. So it's destruction of damaged or redundant cellular components occurring in vacuoles within the cell. So they regenerate themselves, they clean out all the junk that's been made by the cell. They recycle this stuff to make room for new cells to grow. Autophagy and longevity go hand in hand. So if you're fasting, if you can comfortably fast, this goes hand in hand with longevity. So you would live a long and healthy life. Intermittent fasting and keeping your insulin levels down also boost autophagy. It's the only way that autophagy will happen is if you are not consuming sugar and you're fasting. So just because you're fasting and you're consuming sugar and carbs, you're still not going to get the benefits of autophagy. You really have to lay off the carbohydrates and the sugars. So the key to fixing all of this is food. So let food be thy medicine and medicine be thy food. I swear you really can heal yourself one meal at a time. And the second best thing to do is exercise. So walking, lifting weights, whatever exercise it may be, yoga, whatever. But just keep in mind, you can't outrun or out-exercise a bad diet. So if you're really eating poorly, you really may want to reconsider what and how you're eating. So what should you use? What are your options if you're going to go sugarless? Well, you see here, and I know you've seen in my desserts that I've posted that I use Monkfruit and Lakanto, Swerve and Lakanto brand. So I really do suggest you go sugar-free indefinitely. I think it's one of the best things that you could do for your body. And so these are really what you should do. So Swerve sweetener is erythritol. So it's a sugar substitute that has 0 calories and does not raise your blood sugar. It's made from natural ingredients and can be used for baking, which you've seen because I've made plenty of desserts at this point. Swerve bakes, tastes, and measures cup for cup like regular sugar. It comes in granular and confectioner sugar forms. So this is the brown sugar, this is the confectioners, and this is just the white sugar replacement. And unlike artificial sweeteners such as aspartame, saccharin, and sucralose, Swerve sweetener is made from natural ingredients, and all ingredients are sourced from the United States and France. Erythritol is naturally found in fruits such as cantaloupe as well as in grapes. It is also a natural byproduct of the fermentation of bacteria in our digestive system. This stuff is really great. I love it. It is awesome. It's a great sugar replacement. I would say though, if you're gonna start switching over to this, whatever the recipes call for, use half of what it calls for. So if a recipe calls for a half a cup of white sugar in your recipe, use a fourth of a cup. It's just, you can't take it out, and it is, I find, sweeter than regular sugar, but you can add more in. So just keep that in mind when you use this stuff. Use half of what the recipe calls for. And then Lakanto, the monk fruit. Monk fruit, I actually adore monk fruit. If I had a choice to pick, even though this is an erythritol monk fruit blend, I do love the monk fruit. I think it tastes just like sugar. There's no funny aftertaste. And it's derived from the monk fruit plant, which looks like a fruit, I think. I'm sorry. It's got to be a fruit. I'm pretty sure. It's a fruit. Looks like a small green gourd native to regions of China and Thailand. The monk fruit is picked, then dried out before extraction. The result is a sweetener that is 150 to 200 times sweeter than sugar. It is also said to not have a bitter aftertaste like brands such as Stevia. We have brown sugar and the white sugar replacement. And so when I do make recipes, I use this stuff. Like I said, cut it in half. A little does go a long way. And make sure that you make the switch to sugar-free. Your body will truly thank you. And the longevity, your body, you'll be so happy with how you feel, even how you look going sugar-free. It's amazing. And you break that addiction, it sets you free, and you can pretty much eat anything you want just with different substitutes. I mean, I think if you've seen my desserts now, there's pretty much nothing you can't make with this stuff, and they're just as good, and you don't get the crazy blood sugar spikes. So it's really, really awesome. So I hope you guys learned a little something, and go sugar-free.